So after such brutal crimes, we're left with people asking, how come we don't do anything about it? Well, we do something. We arrest and punish the vermin responsible. And then, of course, we argue about guns. Although often, it's only the loudest, sometimes British voices we hear. And then we return to our neutral corners and wait till the next crime occurs. This shooter, why name him, should be boiled alive. The rest of us, though, should seek common ground, or we'll go around this track forever. Number one, obviously, when a racist act occurs, it's proof that racism exists and may never, ever go away, a leftover scab from the early days of group living. However, when you use this murderous act to represent a greater whole, as if society itself pulled this trigger, then you diminish evil. Our revulsion to the crime, not the crime itself, indicates who we are. When the shooting took place, society didn't rejoice. Instead, hearing the news was like ingesting ipecac. It made us sick to our stomachs. A racist country doesn't recoil. So this was a racist act, but it was also terror. Forget mental illness. If this punk is deranged, then so is ISIS. Seriously, beheading people on a beach is just as crazy. Insanity should be case by case, not race by race. Fact is, calling him deranged is a cop-out. He planned his cowardice. He almost changed his mind. Young men, be they white, black, Arab, don't need a screw loose to be evil. All they need is a thirst for infamy, a toxic belief, and a path. What they don't need from us is an excuse. So there's been a lot of blame going around because that's what happens the next day. They blame drugs, Kimberly. They blame guns. They blame Fox News. I can play that tape later. They blame society. They blame gentrification. I don't even understand half this stuff. Is this just a natural human need?
Right, because we struggle to try and understand and to make sense of something, because you don't want to actually say pure, unadulterated evil like the devil exists on earth, but it does. And what happened in Charleston is evidence, proof of that, I think, conclusively. So they try and blame guns and do everything, but it's misdirected. It's not really helpful. It's just operating in a state of denial. The guns don't sit there and do things on their own. Guns are used to save lives every day as well and to defend others lawfully and legally in this country. So you shouldn't confuse the two.
You know, Julie, a lot of people, they mention deranged, crazy, but there's millions of people with mental illness who don't shoot black people in churches.
Right.
And sometimes it just seems that that's the go-to spot for some reason.
You know, I'm so glad you call this an act of terror, because if this guy were, I don't know, let's say Muslim, we'd be calling him a terrorist. This guy is a terrorist, and there's no two ways about it. What he did was perpetuate an act of terror against black people. That's what he did. And to say this was anything else, you know, would I get offended by our people saying, well, you know, we have to look at mental illness, we have to look, I mean, yeah, there's a whole bunch of different things you want to look at, and that's fine. You want to look at gun control, look at gun control. You want to look at mental illness, look at mental illness. What you've also got to look at is the fact that this is an act of terror, exactly as if somebody from ISIS came here and shot up a synagogue or shot up Times Square or anything else. This was somebody trying to perpetuate terror upon an ethnic community. And that's something that I think is lost in the sauce here whenever people talk about, well, he had needs and he was sick and he was deranged. He was a lot of those things, maybe. I don't know. I don't know him. I don't know anything about him, really. He was a terrorist, and that's what he was. And I'm glad you called it for what it is.
Eric, I mean, he had an ideology, and he attacked based on it.
And that's terror, but he's also a racist. Yeah. I mean, he literally said, you people are having sex with our wives, and you're taking over our country. Listen. If you have a problem with President Obama not being able to call a Muslim extremist for whatever ideological reason he doesn't want to do it, then you can't sit here and be white and say that guy wasn't a racist. He was. He is. And should be treated that way. And it should be a hate crime, terror crime, hate crime. Give it all to him. And I would say give him the whatever form of capital punishment you can give him in South Carolina. Interesting, though, you know, the gun debate, I can't believe within hours of this murder, this terror, that President Obama brings up the gun debate. The first time he hits the camera. Listen, this is not the time to litigate it, but wow, that was, in my opinion, that was just too early. I don't know, maybe after they're buried.
After everybody moves on, I mean, that's the problem. Right. Everybody's going to move on, and we're going to go back to this again. It's going to happen again. That's the problem.
Have the gun debate if you want, and we'll have the debate, and Greg and I will point out that, once again, it's a place where there are likely not any guns, that some crazy madman goes in and shoots the place up. But I just would hope we would have waited a few days for that.
Yeah. Dana, I want to play this. This is Jon Stewart did a serious monologue on this. He was very moved, and I want to play a piece and then ask you a question about it.
Okay.
Al-Qaeda, all those guys, ISIS, they're not compared to the damage that we can apparently do to ourselves on a regular basis.
The issue I have with this is we, and I'm not sure if I'm misreading this, but the idea that we do to ourselves, the idea of extrapolating a horrific event to society at large, am I misreading this, or?
I took it another way,
okay,
which was just along the lines about that human beings can do to themselves. I don't think that he was. I would have taken it a different way.
Yeah.
I do think that on the question, whenever people want to have that debate about guns, I actually think because that debate is ongoing and it is not going to be solved quickly, there is a part of this law enforcement issue and intelligence sharing that we know that he was on Facebook. Mm-hmm. We know he was looking at the racist websites. We know that he was writing these types of things. And are we going to get to a point where we can allow law enforcement to have some sort of deterrent to be able to get in front of some of these things and just check someone out, whatever it might be? Those are very tricky, fine lines when it comes to our civil liberties as they stand. But there might have been a way on this when we are looking at a digital war to not lose it either when it comes to ISIS or even domestic terrorism.